Hello everyone, in this video we are going to learn about middlewares in .NET. You can get all the information about middlewares in written form in this blog post. So let's understand what middleware is. A middleware is a piece of code that runs in the request pipeline or HTTP pipeline. So what is HTTP pipeline? When you make a request to the endpoint, HTTP endpoint or REST endpoint, it is called a HTTP request. So when you make a request, then in that request pipeline, middleware runs between the request and response. So they run in a sequence. Means first middleware 1 will execute, then middleware 2 will execute, then middleware 3 will execute, then it will give the response. In the response, they execute in the reverse order, which means in the response, first middleware 3 will execute, then middleware 2 will execute, then middleware 1 is execute. Each middleware have capability to change the request and to change the response, and a middleware can short circuit the pipeline. For example, if middleware 2 fails, it will short circuits the pipeline. It won't go further in the direction, like it won't go to the middleware 3 and it won't give the response back. It will just crash here and short circuits the pipeline. So our pipeline will be short circuits in the middleware 2. So if you have worked with .NET Core application, you already have been using middlewares, but it might be a chance you might not aware of that. So here is our program.cs file of a web API application. So here you can see we have these inbuilt middlewares: HTTPsRedirection, UseCors, UseAuthentication, UseAuthentication. So these are built in middlewares, and when we make a request, these middlewares will execute in a sequence. Like this middleware executes first, then this one, then this one, then this one, and then it will finally gives the response. Now let's create our own middleware. So we have three ways to create our middlewares. So first one is called inline middleware, then second one is called conventional middleware, and the last one is called factory based middleware. So first we will work on the inline middleware. To create an inline middleware, we just have to write here app.use, and let's define it below this request. Okay, app.use async, and here we will have anonymous method, and it will take two parameters. First one is context, another one is next. And if we look at this one is a HTTP context, and this one is a request delegate. Now we just have to write here await next, and we will pass the context here. We are just calling the next middleware here and passing the context to the next middleware. If it won't find the next middleware, it will just return the response. So let's write here console.writeLine and middleware 1. So let's execute this application. So let's go here in the bash terminal. I'm using bash terminal. So here I'm going to make the curl request. So curl and the URL, and that's it. So it is returning us hello. And if we go here, you can see it has run this middleware, which is called middleware 1. So let me do one more thing. I'm going to open it in the terminal. So clear cd. Oops, it has copied too much. Okay, so we just need to remove this guy and we are fine. Now I'm going to run project in the external bash, and here I will write the curl request. Okay, now I'm not dependent on the integrated terminal. So let's add few more middlewares, 2, 3, and just write here middleware 2 and here middleware 3. So let's run them. So middleware don't run automatically. So they run when you make HTTP request. So I'm going to make the HTTP request through the curl, and let's copy this guy, and I'm going to type here the curl, and that's it. So in the response we have get hello. Okay, and here you can see that this middleware has executed in a sequence. So I'm just executing this endpoint, which is just returning us hello. Now we have proven a point middleware runs in a sequence. Now let's type here console.writeLine middleware 1. Let's type here next. So I'm logging in the middleware before and after the next. So I have appended this string like before next for the middleware, for the logging before the next, and after next for logging after the next. So I've done for each of the middleware. So let's run this application again and let's see what happens. So let's make a curl request, and in the return we are getting hello. And here you can see middleware 1 before next, middleware 2 before next, middleware 3 before rest next, middleware 3 after next, middleware 2 after next, middleware 1 after next. So it means the code block before next is executed in the request pipeline, and the code block after the next is executed in the response pipeline. So when we make HTTP request, first this block executes, then this block execute, then this block execute. You can verify it here. First middleware 1 before next, then middleware 2 before next, middleware 3 before next, and in the response this middleware is executed in the reverse order. So first middleware 3 is executed here, then middleware 2, then middleware 1. So let's try to manipulate the request and response through middlewares. So first of all, stack here content dot request dot headers dot append, and here we can make a custom header. So let's type here x custom request. So let's add a 1 2 3 as a value, and let's write here context dot response dot header dot append, and it will be response, it will be 3 to 1. So let's run this application and let's make a curl request in a verbose mode. So here you can see here I'm not able to see any custom request and response. So let's go here and we are getting this error. So let me figure out where the error is. Okay, so let's put this header here, the response header, and let's rerun the application. And let's make a curl request again, and here let's see we don't have any error, and in the response you can see we have this custom response header x custom response 3 to 1. So we won't be able to see the custom request header in the curl request. For that we have to write some code here. So first we have to fetch the headers from the request, then we need to print them out. Similarly, we need to fetch the response header from the context.response.header, then we need to print them out. So let's run the application and check the curl request again. So I'm making the curl request without verbose mode, and here you can see we have request headers like this one, x custom request 1 2 3, and we also have this custom response header 3 to 1. So in this way we can manipulate the HTTP request. So let's modify the HTTP response. So let's see how we can do that. So let me delete this thing, and you can get all this code from my blog post, so don't worry about this. Let me remove this guy and this guy and this guy. Okay, so now let's see how we can manipulate the response. So first we need to write context dot response dot content type, and content type is text/plain because our endpoint is returning as a text/plain response. So this thing need to be defined above the next. So now we are going to write the response. So just gonna type here await context dot response dot write async, and we can type here appended in middleware 1, and just copy this guy here and just type here, and we are going to write here too. So let's just test this thing. So just type here dotnet run, dotnet run, and we have to wait for a while. Okay, so now just hit this guy and you can see hello appended in middleware 1, appended in middleware 2, and appended in middleware 1. If we just write it above the next, so let's see what happens. So here just write here prepended in middleware 1 and middleware 2, and let's rerun the application .NET run. If I type here this, then let's see prepended in middleware 1, prepended in middleware 2, then hello. When we write our response before the next, we are prepending the content before the actual response, and when we write our response after the next, then we are appending the response after the actual response, which is hello. So now we have completed the inline middleware and we have modified our request and response, and we are also done this part before and pre-next. We have done it earlier. Now let's move to the conventional middlewares. So for that, let's go here in the solution explorer, and here just create a folder, name middlewares, and within the folder let's create a class request logging middleware. So we are going to inject our request logger here, private read only logger, name of the class which is request logging middleware, name it logger, press Ctrl dot and generate constructor. That's it. This class need to define a method called invoke async, so public async task invoke async, and this method will take a parameter name http context, and we will have one more private field here, private read only request delegate next, and let's inject it through the constructor. Okay, so we have injected it here, that's fine. Now here we will write await next, and we will pass context to it, and just type here console dot write line before next and after next. So it is a conventional way of creating middleware through the class, and we have to call it here. So app.use middleware and request logging middleware. That's it. So that's how we call a middleware. Since it is a request logging middleware, so we should have use a logger. So let's type here logger dot log debug or log information, logger dot log information, and make sure you have called it here. So let's run our application. Let's make a curl request here. You will see the response is hello, and let's say here we have this thing before next and after next. So our middleware is working as expected. Let's say I want to inject some service in the middleware. Let's say we have this service some service, this one, and it just have a single method name some method, and it is some method, so it doesn't matter what it has. Let's try to register this service here as a transient. Transient some service. Okay, and let's inject it here. So let me type here private read only some service, and let's write here add parameter. So let's write here service dot some method. Okay, now let's run this application. Let's see what happens. Let's make a curl request here, and you will see before next it is some method, and after next. So our service is injected perfectly. What if I want to inject it as a scoped? So let's run it again. You will see that it did not even run. So we are getting some error because we cannot inject a scoped service in the middleware of this type of middleware. So that's why we are getting error. One more thing I want to say, that this middleware is registered as a singleton. So now let's talk about the factory based middleware. So it is a middleware I like very much because it gives us a type safety. So we need to inject it from not iLogger, middleware, and we need to implement this interface. So let's see what this interface is expecting from us. So it is expecting a method name invoke async, just it was like here, and it is taking two parameters, http context and request delegate next. So let's call these things and let's copy these things and paste them here. So since we are using await here, we also have to use async here. Now we can remove few things from here, not few things, we just need to remove this request delegate because we do not need it. So let's remove this thing and we are good. So we just need two services to inject here. First one is iLogger, then iService, and then here just remove the underscore. So we are good. So it is our factory based middleware. So how to register it? And one more thing, we have injected this service here, which is a scoped service here. To register this, we need to write one more line apart from this. So we also have to register it here. So it's a builder dot services dot add transient and I request logging what it was, request logging middleware. Okay, and parentheses. So let's run the application and let's see what happens. Let's make a request and let's see. Before next, it is some method after next. So few things we need to notice about the factory based middleware. It is activated per HTTP request, which allows us to inject scoped services in the middleware. So it is activated per HTTP request. It means whenever you hit an endpoint, it will be registered. The next thing is, unlike the conventional middleware, we need to register the factory based middleware. So we have to register it as a scoped or transient. We also have a middleware called terminal middleware. So all of the above middleware were the non-terminal middlewares. They are chained together and they pass context to the next middleware in a sequence. So terminal middleware is the final middleware of the pipeline. It is responsible for sending response back to the client. So after that middleware, not any middleware is going to execute. So it is just the final middleware. So let's see how that works. Let's create a terminal middleware here, app.run, and it will take only one parameter, context. Let's type here async, await context dot response dot write async. It is from the terminal middleware. You should notice one thing. It is a terminal middleware, and after this middleware we are running this request logging middleware. So let's see it is executed or not. So for that we need to run our application. Let's make a curl request and you can see it is from the terminal middleware. So it has completely changed the response, and you can see nothing is called after this middleware. So we have called this middleware after the terminal middleware, and this middleware is not executed because our pipeline will end here and it will completely replace the response with this one. We have one more concept in the middlewares which is called branching. So let's talk about the first way of branching, which is map. Okay, so here we have this code and you can see we have this app.map/admin and we are calling this method handle map admin. So this handle map admin takes this parameter application builder app, and here we are executing one middleware which is basically writing middleware for admin, and then we are writing here the terminal middleware response from the admin branch. So what happens here when we make any request that starts with /admin, so it will create a new branch of pipeline. So it will not follow this pipeline and it will create a new branch. And sorry, it should be here. Okay, so when user makes a request which is started with admin/admin, so it will create a new branch of middleware and executes those middleware and return the response. So it won't execute this middleware which is from the main branch because we are deviated from the branch from here. We have took a different route. So let's execute it and let's see. So let's call this it is from the main branch, or it is the main branch. So you can see when we made this curl request, it has executed this terminal middleware. It is the main branch. So let's try to make a different request like admin. So you can see we have different response from the admin branch which came from here, and you will also notice here that it also has executed this middleware which is defined here. So when we made a request with /admin, it has changed the direction and it will directly go here and it will execute the middleware in this sequence. So let's make one more request, admin/blah. So it will behave the same because our request is starting with admin and we are getting the response from the admin branch, and you can see this middleware is also executed. One more thing, we cannot return to the main branch from when we are using the map. So let's remove this terminal middleware, and we are hoping that when we have called this next, it should go here to this middleware. Let's see, will it go or not. First, let's stop this guy and run this guy. Let's make a curl request just like the simple one. It is a main branch. So let's make a curl request with admin, and you can see that nothing has happened. So why nothing has happened? Let's check it through the verbose, and you can see that 404 not found. So what happened when we executed this route slash admin? It has changed the direction of the pipeline. It went here and it has executed this middleware, then it followed this line. Next, it is searching for the next middleware. It does not have any next middleware and not any terminal middleware, so it cannot go anywhere. So it has returned the 404 not found. So basically it did not have joined the main branch. If it had, it must have printed this thing. So it get basically lost here, and it did not come back here to execute this middleware. We also have MapWhen, and this is executed when it fulfills some conditions, like the request contains a key name page in the request, then it will create a new branch for the pipeline. Let's check out what is happening in the handle method. So in the handle method, we are just logging the page value of the key page, and we are writing the response from the branch. So let's go here and let's run the application again, .NET run. So when we made a simple request like this, so it is saying main pipeline. So it is executing this terminal middleware. So let's make a request like this, greetings and page equals to 22, and you can see when we have passed this parameter in the query, it has given the response from the branch, and you can see it has also logged the value of the page which we have defined here. So it has executed this middleware, then it has modified the response from the branch. So this thing also not merge with the main branch, so it won't ever merge with the main branch. So let's see, let's check it out. So let's make the curl request. You see main pipeline. Let's make another curl request like this one, and you will see I'm not getting anything. But if I type here verbose, and we will see we have 404 not found, because when it has called this next method, it does not have any terminal middleware or any middleware, then it did not go here to this middleware, and it just have written the 404 not found. We have similar middleware like MapWhen, which is UseWhen, and only difference between them, UseWhen can join the main pipeline. So same thing if we execute with UseWhen, let's see what will happen. So with MapWhen we were getting 404 not found. Let's see what happened when we are using MapWhen. So let's make the curl request, and you can see we are getting 200 okay, main pipeline okay, and page 22. So what happened here, it just has called the next method, then it has joined the main branch and went there, and it has returned the response main pipeline. So that is the difference between MapWhen and UseWhen. UseWhen can rejoin the main pipeline. So those were all about the branching in the middleware, and that is all about the middleware. If you found this video helpful, then make sure to like it. Make sure to subscribe the channel to get more videos like this. That's it for now. See you next time.